newcomers in the meeting, so we are very welcoming community. So we want every newcomer to get up and speak about themselves, so that we and our community know about you. So do we have any newcomers? Anyone who is joining this call for the first time? I'm just checking out through the list, and it is Kanika Gola, right?
Hello everyone, my name is Kanika. I'm a second year student pursuing BTech. I'm a full stack MERN developer and an open source enthusiast. Yeah, and I'm joining this developer call for the first time. Yeah.
Thanks, Kanika. We need some MERN developers. Like, yeah, your help would be admired, and you will learn a lot during the process. And very glad to hear that you're open source enthusiast to like all of us here. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you.
And I think you also forgot to get your name in the attendees. Like, if you do it, then on the next call too, I'm gonna tell you to give your introduction. Otherwise, yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't understand you. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, the meeting minutes Lee is sharing. So, yep.
Oh, okay. You joined. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I will do it for the next time.
No worries. It's a joke. So, yeah, moving to our next, list of items. So it is first by Aditya, updates on catalog.
Yep, I'll just share my screen. So yeah, so I just have small updates. So basically, so we were for the catalog that we have on meshery.io. We were using JSON as the data file so that we get these cards over here. So right now we are moving away from the single JSON data file and moving on to collections, like having separate markdowns uh, for all the patterns, because after that it'll be easier for us to add new patterns later on, and it'll also be easier for us to implement other people adding more patterns to this. So it's just a draft PR right now. I have just added because we have like 34 patterns, so it'll take some time to write them all up. So also what helps us, like what this helps us to do is have like a read more button that would take us to a separate page where these patterns would be there, and it'll be easier to have a link to them wherever we can, or it'll be easier for us to share it with other people as well if all the patterns have a link to them. So yeah, just some minor updates here, and yeah, I'll be working more on the catalog this week. Like I'll probably get it done by tomorrow. So yep, that's all. Any feedback, or if anyone thinks that this is not the approach that we should be taking, this is my PR. Slide and link. So any thoughts or feedback?
Does anyone think that the catalog is not particularly either useful or novel? Like there's a lot of catalogs out there. There's a lot of application catalogs. Usually the type of catalog you go to is they'll let you choose, from typical apps. Usually it's apps, but sometimes it's infrastructure. And by apps, I mean something like WordPress or Ghost or Gatsby, or like some, an app like that. It doesn't have to be a blogging system, but those are just the first things that come to mind. Sometimes it's provisioning of other infrastructure. It's a lot of times that's what you'll find in the app catalog. This one is intended to be, and is a little bit different. This one it's intended to, for the most part, capture best practices. So best practices come in a few different forms. So one of those forms that like the very first design, the very first item in this catalog, it's a deployment model. And so there might be best practices around deployment models. Istio, as an example, is highly configurable, and you can run it in an overtly secure way, or in a highly telemetric way, or there's lots of various configurations. It depends on how you want to use it and what you want to use it for. So consequently, there are different deployment models, and consequently, there are best practices in those models. There's trade-offs to understand. If you're really going to have it emit distributed traces every single time that a request is received and processed by the service mesh, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a lot of storage. It's going to cost you a lot of CPU cycle, and it might even cost you some latency. And that can be totally worth it for you. And hence the caveats and considerations portion, or caveats and consideration, maybe we should put an S after that, but is a section wherein it would describe something like that. So if you have a deployment, an Istio deployment in this example that has, all that telemetry coming out, it could be that the consideration is that you've got enough storage lying around or enough CPU lying around. So I wanted to describe this a little bit differently than some of the other app catalogs that are out there, because I do want to hear from those that are on the call. I mean, and that's what Aditya is asking as well, is I'm asking a little more pointedly, is like, is this a worthwhile exercise? Are these types of things helpful? These are not your stereotypical, for the most part, like if we were to go look at a different catalog item, I think one of them is called circuit breaker. So this is, circuit breaking is a capability of like all of the service meshes. You can configure circuit breaking in different ways. You can configure them to be highly sensitive. You can configure them to to barely ever open or hardly ever close back, or there's considerations as you do it. And that's what we're trying to do here, is imbue best practices and help people comprehend and understand what happens when they configure their infrastructure certain ways, and what are the best practices around that. So again, so what we're not seeing necessarily here is a bunch of apps. It's a little bit different. What are your thoughts? Like, part of the goal of this type of a catalog is that Sekranda on the call, he may end up with, well, he may end up with a design that is best practices for him or for his organization, or just one that it isn't really, he doesn't consider it best practice. He considers it just experimental, but either way, he wants to share it. So part of the consideration for this type of a catalog is that those in the community, those that are using Meshery, or can come and share these patterns, these designs, share their WebAssembly filters, or if there are other types of filters that you might add to your service mesh, configurations you might do in an eBPF, configurations that you might apply through OPA policies. These, in some respects, you could think of them as power-ups, as add-ons to your service mesh. You can certainly deploy the mesh without turning on a lot of things, or you can turn on a number of things. And some of those things that you turn on, again, part of the point here is that you don't, other than just turning them on, you're not quite sure what considerations you need to account for when you enable that feature. How should you configure it? And why? Like, what are the characteristics? What are the considerations of that configuration? So this should be about this should facilitate sharing. A lot of times when people share, it's kind of nice to receive credit. Sometimes it's nice to be able to say that, Gaurav uploaded this, and here's a link back to maybe where they've got that checked in somewhere else. So that's a good question, is like, if this is to facilitate sharing, what are the mechanics by which we would expect people would contribute to the catalog? One, and then ongoing, as they change their design and learn more and update their practices, should these be versioned? As they're versioned, how is it that we would ease the burden of keeping these up to date, the burden on contributors here that are creating the catalog, and the burden on those publishing into the catalog. So I'll be quiet for a moment. There's a number of other considerations to account for, but I think somebody was going to say something.
Yeah, so so since this is a catalog, so we should also have an option to directly import it inside the Meshery instead of like downloading it through and then re-uploading it. So I think copy URL method has this option enabled. For example, you can directly import pattern from the catalog itself. Since we are already maintaining the catalog, we don't need to overhead to the user to just download them, then re-upload it in the machine.
Yeah, even
It would seem like people. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that even I think that we should do that.
It seemed like people would want potentially some amount of versioning over their design and over which version of that design that they've deployed. If there are differences between one version of the next and what that might mean to them. So anyway, I bring up these potential features so that you can reflect on them as you're designing out the catalog. Ideally, yep. So that might mean user accounts. That might mean some of these are well supported and kind of the community stands behind, or some of these might be experimental. There might need to be ways to signal that, to differentiate those. So anyway, things to think about.
Yeah, I just uploaded a pattern, imported a pattern from catalog, and it worked so great. So what people can do is, if I can share my screen. So if they find any design from the catalog that is suiting their needs for the moment, what they can do is just click on this import button, grab the URL from there. For example, how I got this URL is from there, copy URL, and then paste it here, and then just click import. So your new pattern will be ready in a minute. Yes. Yeah, it does. So the second image have it. So you can check that out and design according to your needs based on what are the available adapters you have, and yeah, this is in a different domain. So yeah, let's move on. Should we move only, or we do have any further discussions on?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully that gives people some things to chew on. There's one last thing that I would say about the catalog that's there. So Pranav mentioned the ability to see the designs potentially in Meshery Cloud. Abhi mentioned the ability, I think it was Abhi, to see the designs inside of Meshery UI. And Aditya was saying, hey, you can see these designs inside of the catalog itself. So the parting thought that I would leave you all with is that it's not insignificant, considering the number of clients that were just mentioned for perusing the catalog. It's noteworthy that the other portion of what this particular catalog provides is a registry. Leaving aside the user-facing interaction, the fact that there's a central registry, something to think about.
Yeah, we should take a note on And do we have any other comments on registry and pattern catalog? I guess there are none. So Let's move to the next item for now, which is by Aditya Narayan. Related patterns in catalog. So again, one of the pattern catalog thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Aditya, would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, sure. I'll share my screen. So as you can see, there's some changes going on in the catalog page. And one of the changes is that we are dynamically introducing the related patterns field. Earlier, it was self-referencing, like whichever pattern we were showing, the related patterns were showing that only. But now we have changed the logic a bit, and the related pattern shows all the patterns that have same type. Like suppose the circuit breaker has type traffic management, so related patterns shows all the patterns that have traffic management as their type. So yeah, this was a small fix that that updates that was made on the catalog.
I believe that is very helpful in case someone is searching for something related to traffic management, and they hopping on one design, and then they can see the rest of the recommendations or some of the top picks in the category of traffic management, for example. So I believe it is great addition here.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. So okay, moving to the next item. So after the multi-context thing, we have some problems in the UI with the lifecycle page specifically, where lifecycle page was so what the lifecycle page is, for example. This is the lifecycle page, management page, where you are trying to install service meshes, go through its life cycle, apply custom configurations, do your thing with the service meshes, right? So actually it encountered some problems due to major level of refactoring in the UI as well as in the server. So it went unnoticed while we are doing refactoring thing on the UI and server. So I think this PR I created here fixed everything related to the life cycle menu. I have linked the PR in the chat, sorry, in the doc. So please do review it. Like it's already merged, but if you review it, then yeah, we can get another fixing a thing. And yeah, so that was the update. So a lot of cyber threats were failing due to this bug. We were not able to get through the page. The select service mesh text field thing was also not responsive on the first load. So yeah, all the things are related to service mesh and life cycle page were fixed yesterday. So if you are on the previous build, so please rebuild your meshery UI, or else it is fine. That was a minor update from my side. Do you have any comments? Like if you tried installing some service meshes and then you're not able to do, yeah. So if you do have anything, then please.
Yeah. So, Abhi, you were speaking about this in context of multiple Kubernetes cluster support.
Yes.
Okay. The fact that the dashboard page is the one that benefits maybe the most from views, from viewing the information back from the contexts, but many of the other pages where you're taking action and invoking operations, those benefit by way of like deployment or multi-context operations, which is that deployment model that you're showing. Okay. Got you. Is state maintained then across the pages for the selections, the preferences that people have made?
Exactly. Yeah, there is. So you are asking about the context references that they have selected through the page. So all these things, especially multi-cluster things, for example, the selected gates context, the operator subscriptions, and the meshing status subscriptions, they were all managed on the global level. They are supplied to all the pages that are in need without reinitializing the subscription. So yes, we do manage, our global state on the multi-context features and the states related to it.
Oh, random question. Are we still having, we're still having challenges around persistence of the subscription WebSocket across page reloads?
No.
No, okay. That's good.
So there are quite few, only few number of subscriptions that are required across all the pages. One of them is the operator part. If you're seeing the a fully lightened Kubernetes chip, that means your operator is in healthy state and is successfully running in your cluster. If it is not, then probably you are not good with your operator. Some operations may fail. So yes, so all the subscriptions are not reinitialized or reinstantiated on page alerts. They are reinstantiated when you have when you are switching back to different clusters, like selecting another cluster. So probably when I did it, I would have flushed the previous subscription so that I should not see the data from I should get the updated data from both the cluster. So that's how we are managing, flushing and then reinitializing subscription. So it is event based now instead of different page routes. So yeah, we have quite vibrant with this approach, and we are able to get the subscription data quite fast in the dashboard also. So yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's time to move to the next item by Pranav, which is progress on account extension. So we are doing some recently doing some changes in Meshery Cloud. We are thinking to provide user interface to the users itself. So Pranav will talk rest.
I'll share my screen. First, I'll again give a context like I gave the last time, like what actually are accounts and what are remote provider and what's happened when you're signing into Meshery. So whenever you start Meshery, you see this page where you select your provider. Now you select your provider. Usually you want to go for a remote provider like Meshery. This is because it provides you with ability to persist your current instance of Meshery, which includes saving your application, saving your filters, patterns, or saving your designs. And more than that, like you can then moreover remote provider is necessary because it provides you with extensions point which like further enhances your user interface in Meshery. So currently like what happens like when I connect with sign in with GitHub, GitHub is an external remote provider which provides my GitHub provides my authentication, my username and password to Meshery remote provider, and then it's let me sign in to Meshery, and it provides all that information. But currently, like we cannot change that information, we cannot see that. So I was working on making a new UI where we can see all that information, which I already shared. And last time I quickly share it again, like how it looks like. So this is the profile which I like shared last time as well. Like it's done where you can see your profile, you can see your username, first name, last name, email provider, and I was learning local instance of this. I was working on so it provides you with how many Kubernetes clusters I've ever connected to Kubernetes while learning Meshery, or how many designs I have. And these API tokens are very useful. For example, it gives you the OAuth token which you generated while signing into Meshery instance, or the token you generated like the infinite token, which you can use in your GitHub Actions or your Meshery CTL as an infinite token. Now the thing is that I was working on giving the same UI in Meshery UI, where I was working on an external extension point, that's this account. Like if I show my capability, like there's an endpoint in Meshery which shows all the capabilities which are provided by the remote provider. So currently I've added a new capability, that is account, and it comes with new features like seeing your profile, seeing your account overview, and different. The old, like if I click over it, it will break because like only few things are left in it. Like I have to update the Meshery server for the new APIs, so that the new UI which Uzair created would be shown here. Like that's the last part which is left. Other than that, like that's the update from my side. Uzair, would you like to add on to something?
No, you mostly covered all things. I would like to say that all once the extension point is ready, just the linkages, some linkages we have to fix, and we will be able to complete it.
And this is a new thing. Like earlier, it wasn't here, so that's the new thing which we added. Any feedback? And one more thing, like right now you can directly sign into Meshery Cloud. Like earlier it wasn't the case, but right now whenever you go to this link, which is already given in the doc meeting minutes, like whenever you go here, you would be able to see your profile. So right now, like why I'm speaking, I'll give you the link, go to your profile and see how many things you have worked on to Meshery. So yeah, that's the thing.
By the way, can you go back to that page where it showed how many clusters you have?
Yeah.
So, so it says Kubernetes clusters and not Kubernetes context. So, you're using basically unique context IDs, right here?
Yeah.
So context IDs, they are a function of both Meshery instance as well as your cluster. So if you restart your Meshery instance, you get a new Kubernetes context, but cluster IDs remain the same. They are kind of a fingerprint of a cluster. So if you're saying Kubernetes clusters, shouldn't we use cluster ID instead of that, so that we are only showing the unique clusters? Or if you're using the context ID, should we show Kubernetes context here? Because here it says clusters, but I don't know if that's kind of a nitpick, but it kind of bugged me, so I pointed it out. If someone else has a contrary opinion, then
I'll change it. Actually, I was referring to the unique Kubernetes server ID for getting the servers which a user has used in Meshery. I'll update that. I'll change it to context.
Yeah. Another thing I can suggest right now is that with the Kubernetes cluster, you can give a very short captioning with it, like a short brief information of what this Kubernetes cluster mean to say. For example, some users may not be fully aware of what it is saying from our perspective, especially. So yeah. For example, these many contexts have the Meshery server detected in your cluster. So.
But by the way, which field did you said, Pranav, you're using?
I was using Kubernetes server ID.
Yeah, that's I think, yeah, that is the cluster ID. That is I'm 99% sure that is the cluster ID. So yeah, these 133 cluster means that you have restarted your cluster these many times. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, do we have any other comments?
I just wanted, like, Pranav, you might have a cluster to spare. Could I borrow one? It looked like you might have a few laying around.
No,
like
actually,
133, man.
Actually, I've like used several. Like earlier, I was also working on multi-cluster, so I might have restarted my cluster several times. So
I mean, like the Bitcoin market, it's like, it's up and down. Like if you're mining, I mean, we could. Anyway, actually, that's a good. So that a question for you, setting aside all of the sarcasm for like 1 minute. That's about as long as I can probably go. You just mentioned an item when, okay, as you were doing multi-cluster testing, you might have nuked your cluster, reinitialized a new one, And even though it was on the same machine, technically it's a new cluster, and so it gets treated and tracked differently. Okay, good, and great. Yeah, thanks for explaining.
Yeah. Yes, so a lot of mystery cloud talks and user accounting. Okay, let's move on to the next thing by Gaurav. So, support for undeploy design pattern file. I think Ashish will be the most happy person right now. So, and Gaurav, if you do have
Yeah,
screen.
sure. Okay. Yeah, so currently for Meshery UI for designs, we can perform CRUD operations on our pattern file that we upload, and we can configure our apps through the action. So we were having the deploy action, but we were missing the undeploy feature for the patterns for the design. So I added it under the action. So it enables us to undeploy the file that we have uploaded. So I think it needs to be handled properly with the cluster that we have. So, and I also will be I'll be also adding the undeploy button to the configurator as well as the deploy. So it will be a good user experience to undeploy and deploy easily. So yeah, Ashish or Abhi, anyone.
Probably the error you were getting were because the YAML file was somewhat invalid. So
Do you have an adapter running right now?
Nope. I
Yeah,
guess I have.
Which one?
none.
Yeah, you don't have an adapter. That error
No.
basically meant that you don't have these two adapter running.
Yep. So yeah, about the UI changes. So we want this deploy and undeploy button in design configurator as well.
And this page also, the card also.
This page. Yeah. Okay.
This card also don't have undeploy button. One another thing I want to point out is if you can go to this one. Yeah. So the undeploy button and the deploy button are somewhat like very different from each other. They are not
Yeah.
yeah. So if you have play icon, then crossing it will make more sense.
Or I'll replace the play icon with double tick marks that we have in extensions for MeshMap.
By the way, I didn't see the. By the way, I didn't see the modal come up when you clicked on deploy. Is there no modal here? And if yes, then why? I mean, we should have a modal here as well.
We should have, like Uzair updated it. Was that PR merged? I pulled the latest few hours ago, I guess.
No, I think I might have missed this part because this deploy was added. Deploy was that might have missed this area. Okay, I will look.
And also, did you add the undeploy in the applications page as well?
No, currently it's just for the designs. I'll toss in there also.
Yeah, thank you. And we would need modal both at both designs and applications everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, I'll update that. So, like last feedback on the icon. So, play button cross or tick for this deploy.
So the play button was just it's a long-standing poor man's band-aid. Okay, it just was never meant to be there. If we can be consistent with, or I would suggest that we would be consistent with the meaning of the check mark in the extensions, which only serves to reinforce what the double check mark with a slash through it means. So I guess I guess my suggestion here is that you consider the double check mark for deploy and the double check mark with a cross with a slash through it as the undeploy.
Yep.
I don't know if that was that what people were saying already.
Yep.
Nice. When I hear cross, I think of X. But yep.
I think of the Christian sign, but anyways.
Do you? Yeah. So see, like it's not a thing. Like cross isn't a thing. It's either an X, question mark, check mark, double check mark. Anyway. Tilde.
Yeah.
Hyphen.
Okay, so yeah, that was all. I guess this list will go too long for the X. Yep, back to Abhi.
Yeah. So the next item is by Yash, which is demo of proposed Meshery Cloud page.
Yeah, I will share my screen. Okay. So this is one of the previously proposed login page, but I just made it in the new cloud, and the old one looks like this. The new one looks like this, and so like views what new changes I can make to make it look better.
So the Meshery version is Meshery.
Yeah, because the backend is not connected, so the version is not being here. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And so Yash, like credit where it's due, right? This is Nikhil's implementation. Is that right?
Yeah. So previously it was in on I think HTML. Now it's on Next, I guess. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Good. Yeah. I mean, so you got an icon off in the bottom, the YouTube.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, if you would add full name and email address with a submit, that'd be great. We ideally need like the ability to switch between either signing in or signing up as well. So you might leave this one where it is as you head into the alternative version. And so for this one, maybe, you know, like ideally, like what's happening here is that there's a number of places that need to use that we might need to authenticate. So as people go to play.meshery.io, they may need to sign in to have a temporary environment in which to learn. And so they would need an account to do so. When they go to sign in, maybe we would want to show them a picture of play.meshery.io, like whatever that logo is. I think it's meshery/learn. Other people might be signing into the catalog, and maybe we'd want to show them something catalog specific, just as a nice, we could show everyone the same generic thing. That might be nice. Those that are signing into Meshery Cloud as it is today to use it as, you know, remote storage for their Meshery sessions, they might see something different. And so there's kind of two thoughts to have in the back of your mind and to work toward. So one is the additional feature of not just signing up through a social OAuth provider, but signing up just with your email address and name. And then the other component to that is like, if you're a returning user or a new sign up, we might need to distinguish. It would be nice if those two things could be one and the same. Right now, they are one and the same. If you're new and you click on a button, you'll get a new account. If you're old and you're returning, and you click on a button, you just sign into your same account. That's nice. There's no difference. You don't have to like switch between sign up and sign in. As we add first name and email address, and then we add a sign in versus sign up. If those can be one and the same, that's great. I think that they can. Another thing to have here is the notion that you might be able to use the same page, the same UI, but just have it configurable. So depending upon what URL someone is using to access the page, we could direct them, we can include that as part of the query string or part of the path to select the appropriate sign-in, whether it was for the catalog, for play.meshery.io, for Meshery Cloud. So what I'm saying is that if you can have one that has a dynamically loadable component that would switch based on where someone is coming from, that'd be good.
Okay.
Nice.
For the sign up feature, should I make it in this page only, this design only, or the other design which you proposed in the Figma file?
I'm saying that they would be one and the same. That's what I'm actually saying. Or I get what you mean, that like this one doesn't have, maybe just to help make it clear, is just push this one and set it aside as a separate HTML file or Next.js file. And then, yeah, as you work on the other design that has a split window, to take into consideration the things that I just said on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, after a bunch full of suggestions, let's move on to the next item, which is by Gaurav about meshery UI restructuring branch and point 7 planning.
Yep, I'm sharing. Yeah, so currently we are at Meshery version .6.release candidate 5W. So parallelly, we are refactoring the Meshery UI using some of the principles that are using Material UI 5 and Redux as a state management tool. So if you are into front end, love doing React, so this one is a good start for you. So you can pick up any of the small components or big one as per your choice. And yeah, add your name in the state tracker and start working on this. And you can make a PR against this branch, Meshery UI.
You should be sharing your screen, Gaurav. We are not able to see.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, I hope it's visible now.
Yes.
And I won't be fined for $2. Okay, so currently we are, let me start again. So currently we are at Meshery version .6 release candidate 5W. So parallel to it, we are refactoring the whole Meshery UI using some of the principles that are using Material UI 5, React 18, and Redux as a state management tool. So if you are into React, love doing front end, you can just grab one of the components from the current Meshery UI and re-implement using the set of principles that are defined on the README description. So let me share this link in the chat.
From the next time we will be talking about this branch. Let's have the localhost 4000 available so that we can see what is the current progress.
Yep, sure.
I can show that I have it running.
Okay, so that would be great. Yash.
Let me share my screen. I have that.
Yeah,
running.
thank you.
So in this branch, we only have the latest thing is, I guess, the nav bar, and others. The only thing we have in the branch is the dashboard page, and other pages are just nothing. So there's a lot of work here.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it is a call for action or ask for volunteers so that they can drop into the Meshery restructuring branch and get some things landed in this page so that we can move further. Meanwhile, since we are following the best practices, the contributor will also learn the best practices that is like applicable everywhere in their next job or in the internship here as well. So anything may happen, right?
I also want some suggestions. Like I will start working on this. So from where should I start? It would be very helpful.
Yeah, actually, like I guess like we already have a spreadsheet. Mostly like what we're trying to do is to split the work in the sense like we have like we'll want each and every component to be atomic in the sense like every interaction and everything that has to be done inside a component. Like you can actually take inspiration from the components that are already created as well. So we'll just have to try to replicate the whole behavior that we have right now. In the sense like for the home page, we right now have all these components, but as you know, right now we have the support. We have added the support for multi-cluster as well. So that also comes into play, and you'll maybe have to design that. And it's so that's how we'll start with this. That is to start creating components one by one.
Yes, you can go with life cycle as a start also.
Oh, okay, thank you, everyone.
Yes. So, Gaurav, do we have anything else? Like, do you have more comments to deliver?
No, I guess Nitish covered a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so Uzair just addressed some bugs in the settings page, and his PR is, I think, ready to merge. So, better he would be talking about it right here, and so that we can just click on the merge button after his demo. So, yeah. Uzair.
Yes. So first of all, this earlier there was like when there was no config file selected, then also success message was popping up. So this is fixed out. Some of the edge cases were missed while the refactoring of the multi-context in UI. And now if you have no context selected and you try to undeploy deploy, this message pops up. And if you have no context connected to Meshery UI, this nota will display that you don't have any cluster connected. Please upload a kubeconfig file. And this search was having some problems, so this was fixed.
By the way, okay, so that warning pops up, but it still deploys, right? It doesn't.
No, it doesn't deploy.
Oh, I think we should change that because okay, right now a lot of things are very Kubernetes specific. Okay, but we don't want to restrict us because this thing will just, if tomorrow we want to support anything out of Kubernetes on the back end we can, but we will be restricting it here. So a warning would suffice. So yeah.
I mean, means if none of the clusters connected, where it will deploy means the context parameter there will be empty.
Yeah, I know that would be empty, and the way it works right now is that it's the responsibility of the handling component, which is the adapter to so for example, we are reusing the same RPC call. So if there is no kube config, then we it's the responsibility of the adapter to throw the error that, hey, I don't have the kube config and I needed the kube config. So for example, if you have Kuma adapter and we are trying to deploy, so Kuma supports VM, so you're trying to deploy something on VM with there we don't need any Kubernetes context, and in that case the adapter is not going to throw an error. In any other case, of course the adapter will throw an error, and that error is enough, and so we should not restrict, basically. That's my point is.
I was not aware of that. Okay. And this button was made inside the table as approach.
Yeah, okay. So according to you, the PR is complete. I reviewed the changes earlier too, and from the last review, there are just few changes that were overwritten. So I think it is fine since we have approval of Pranav also on this PR, so it is fine to merge. I will merge it after all. So the changes are finally completed from your side too, right? Is that?
Yes, just one thing that Ashish mentioned, that user should deploy instead. Contexts are not selected.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so if you can do it quick, then
I was not aware of that. Yes, I will do it.
no
quick.
worries. No worries. Okay, so then let's move on to the item by Debopriya. Vote for the favorite MeshMap logo.
Yeah, Abhi, you can open the link. It's fine.
Yeah, I have just opened it already, but yeah, for the users. So
Yeah, so guys, we're as you know, we were working towards MeshMap, which is an extension for Meshery. It helps us to, visually design our cloud native infrastructure, and there's also a visualizer mode. So we are working towards developing a logo for MeshMap. So these are some suggestions. Some, these are up for vote. So if you have any preference from these options, please go vote over here so that we can finally, finalize on the logo. So yeah, that's all. You can vote right now if you want, but it'll be very helpful if you share your opinions with us.
Yeah. So the voting lines are open till 12 a.m. tomorrow. So please vote for your favorite candidate, and yeah, you should vote, by the way, so that you don't scold us after we have planted one of these. So yeah, please do. And by the way, yeah, just for the handy thing, I'm putting this voting, the Twitter link inside the chat itself, so that you can just go there and interact and like your favorite messenger, give it a vote. So yeah, so let's move on to the next item by Jerod, Docker extension video recording. He's doing. I think we are missing Jerod here, right? Yes. So I believe Jerod is not right now available. So what he is doing is creating a video file for the demo of the Docker extension that we have just landed not very long ago. So it would be helpful in all of you to understand how Docker extensions work with Meshery, and how it starts and what you can achieve by the Docker extension and the service meshes inside Docker itself. So the next item is by Lee, multi-context support completed. So it's just a revisit. Lee would like to give some comments on it.
Yeah, just more or less in context of the fact that multi-cluster is the last significant feature to land in the current version of Meshery. It's a little bit confusing to me, actually. Meshery is still in its v0.5 release. Meshery is still a v0.5 project. And the reason that that's a little bit baffling to me is because we've been so long on the precipice of releasing v0.6. We've had any number of release candidates being released that it feels like we're about to release a .7, but in fact, we're about to release .6. In context of the fact we're about to make that release, that means it's time to look forward toward what would be, see, this is a bit confusing. Yeah, no, what would be in .7, right? What will go into v0.7? There's a roadmap for it. It was discussed a few months back. There's some people who, there's some contributors are still here, and some of those contributors are now maintainers. Some contributors that were here are no longer here. And so we need to revisit those that are, so do you mind visiting that link for me, if you don't mind? if you would, just for those that are on the call and those that are looking to contribute and engage or just use Meshery, please take a moment to review the different categories of functionality that is intended to be worked on. So these are categorized by Meshery server, adapters, CLI, etc. And then their top level features to be added or refactoring to be done. Sometimes it's not a feature, sometimes it's like in this case, a refactoring of part of the persistence layer of Meshery, the database type. And what are listed are in individuals' names as a feature theme champion, as the individual upon which there's some amount of, there's accountability and kind of responsibility for pushing forth the feature. They certainly won't be the only one engaged in that particular area, but that's both to help drive accountability, some amount of recognition, some empowerment and ownership for individuals that are here and want to take on those challenges. I need, for my part, I can go through real quick and empty out a couple of names. There's a few areas where we've got some blanks. For the rest of you, I encourage you to take a moment to read through these. There's some design specifications. There's some mock-ups. There's materials that adjoin what's here. If you're looking for more detail, please comment on the page. And then let's get organized. Let's go do this thing. Let's go get .6 out the door and start here. There are a few of you who, or most of us here, really don't have that much to do in the .6 release because the plane has landed. It's like it's time to unbuckle your seatbelt. It's time to get your luggage, shove that old lady out of the way in the aisle, get in front of her. You know what I mean? Give her the elbow. Come on. I see some of you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Maybe assist her with her bag as she exits the plane, but it's time to deplane. The plane has landed. It's time to make the release and move on to this next one. And so for most of us, that means what's next? So go focus here, ask your questions if you would. Some of the design specs need revisions. If you think that your name should be in one of these spots, raise your hand, suggest it. There will be a number of blank spots, actually. A lot has changed since this was published in December, which was about 6 months ago. Cool, but yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah, so of course, some names are outdated. It was posted 6 months ago. So if you are, as Lee suggested, like if you have anything, if you are feeling comfortable with any of these, and if you are willing to work on any of these, just comment here. Pranav has already given you the link for the discuss forum, particularly pointing to this page. So yeah, your engagement is highly supported, and we would love to get you on board. Yep. So I think we are just over time, just 1 minute. So we can have the rest of the items, as a future item in the next development meeting. So it's time to say goodbye to all of you, and thanks a lot for joining once again.
Thank you, Abhi.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you all. Bye.
Bye.